So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second online workshop of the AgroFossilFree European project. My name is Camino Fabregas, and this is my colleague, Miren Chuasin. We work at Iniciativas Innovadoras, a Spanish consultant that is the leader of communication and dissemination work package in this project. Thanks for attending this workshop. We hope you find it interesting, and we invite all of you to participate in the open discussion or asking questions to our speakers. I've muted all the microphones, but in case you need, you can activate whenever you need. During this workshop, we will let you some time to ask for questions or make some contributions. You can do it raising your hand, and we will let you participate by order. Or if you prefer, you can also ask by writing in the chat, and we will read the questions after the presentation. So let's now start with the presentation of the AgroFossilFree project. We are glad to introduce Konstantinos Vaiopoulos, the project manager of the project, who comes from CERT, based in Greece. And Konstantinos, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mirensu. Thank you, Camino. Regularly would have Thanos Balafoutis with us, the project coordinator, but he's a little down with the flu. He is sick, so we will manage it today, and we will move forward to see the results of AgroFossilFree until now. So for you that you are not familiar with the project, we will see how it started, the basic idea, and the problem statement that led us to launch this project. So, as well know, global agriculture relies on fossil resources for covering most of its energy needs and supporting agricultural productivity in both open field crop production, like all the arable crops, the orchards and the vineyards, and both controlled environment agricultural constructions like greenhouses and livestock facilities. The positive impact on productivity and efficiency, but also on labor intensity and worker fatigue, has been significant. But the impact of agricultural activities on the global warming potential became extensive through greenhouse gases emissions directly emitted from livestock digestion and agricultural machinery, and indirectly through land use intensification and agricultural input application. Next slide, please. So while all of these technologies, the innovative technologies towards sustainability, are pretty popular in many sectors of economy, like the households industry and transport, they have not been applied in agricultural with the same intensity. And the reason for this is that they were not agriculture was not considered as a main energy consumer and GHG producer. And the cost of these technologies was pretty high for small to medium farmers due to their low income. Next slide, please. So now that we have the combination of the market growth that allowed optimization and lower prices and the energy efficiency and rational use of energy, all of these technologies have been more appealing for all sectors. So what we propose, in agriculture right now, there's an important gap between such developments and the actual adoption of them and the use of the available tools and practices by the farmers. So this gap has to be bridged, it has to close by gaining knowledge of existing and future technological advancements in energy sector and adequate training to be achieved within the EU. So in this way, we will have full alignment with the fossil energy use reduction policies, the related legal and regulatory frameworks, and sustainable food production practices. Next slide, please. Regarding some details about the project, the call that we stand for is the fossilizing agriculture solutions and pathways for fossil energy-free farming. It is a CSA project coordination support action. The full title is Strategy and Technologies to Achieve a European Fossil Energy-Free Agriculture. It is a 2 million project, and it stands for 36 months. And now we have entered the third year of our project because we have started from October 2020. And there is a strong collaboration between 16 partners from Greece, Denmark, Poland, Belgium, Italy, Netherlands, Ireland, Germany, and Spain. Next slide, please. So in our project, we use a lot an acronym that we have made for describing fossil energy-free technologies and strategies, and it's called FEFTS. When we are referring to FEFTS, we're referring to all the items that could lead to defossilization through on-site renewable energy production or energy efficiency and rational use of energy in agriculture, or using soil carbon sequestration methods. Next slide, please. Regarding specifically about the technologies and strategies, FEFTS for clean energy production, when we refer to these kind of FEFTS, we refer to technologies that can produce all types of energy by all possible renewable sources like solar, wind, hydroelectric energy, biomass, biogas, biofuels, geothermal energy, etc. About energy efficiency improvement measures, we refer to all applications of open field crop production and controlled environment agricultural facilities like greenhouses and livestock production. For open field crop production, we can talk about efficiency machinery use, optimized field operations, smart irrigation, variable rate of inputs like fertilizers, and many others. For greenhouses and livestock buildings, there are solutions like efficient lighting, dehumidification, heating, cooling, air conditioning, intelligent energy management systems. And specifically for livestock production, we could search solutions for buildings envelope, byproducts for energy use, energy efficiency equipment, and many, many others. Regarding the soil carbon sequestrations, it refers to techniques that could increase the soil organic matter and take advantage of the degraded land that is present today. So moving forward in the next slide, the approach that we have adopted so far is to begin with the research by assessing the EU agricultural energy status and farmers' needs. So with our research, we have produced so far 3 research papers that they are available for all of you to consult. And they're describing the energy status in open field agriculture, in greenhouses, and in livestock facilities. And simultaneously, we have made a very big farmer survey, asking them, interviewing them about their needs, the barriers, their problems, and more than 450 farmers have been participating in this research. The next step that we moved forward in our approach was to make knowledge available by creating an inventory of all possible FEFTS. And when we say FEFTS, we mean research papers, scientific papers, research projects, commercial products, training material, and financial mechanisms. So this would lead later to the creation of a platform, as we will see in the 4th step. Combining all of them, we have made a series of workshops, 3 per country of our project, in order to have some feedback and some multi-actor networking about receiving all the ideas and the feedback from the stakeholders of each country. So a series of 24 regional workshops combined with a series of 3 transnational workshops are the goal. And now we're moving towards the ending of this journey by conducting the 3rd transnational workshop in Denmark in about 1 month from today. The 4th step is the FEFTS platform. It is called AgEnergyPlatform, and it contains more than 1,000 items to consult about the fossilization agriculture. And the last step that we want to reach at the end of the project is to produce policy guidelines and disseminate our results as much as possible. So in the next slide, you can see that the approach is interrelated in this way, and stakeholders from all sectors participate in this, like farmers, innovation brokers, researchers and providers of FEFTS solutions. But the center, as you can see, is always the AgEnergyPlatform. We can move forward on the next slide. Okay, this is a first flavor of the platform. We will analyze it after this presentation, and we can move forward in the next one. That is, I think, is the last one. Okay, where we stand now with our project. The goal is to have identified and categorized 1,700 FEFTS in our inventory. By this day, we have 900 available in our platform, and 1,500 will be available during the next 1 or 2 months in the platform. So we're reaching the goal, and we're very good on this. Regarding the farmers' needs assessment, as we said before, more than 470 farmers were participated in this research and gave their feedback about their needs, about their view on agricultural problems, and said why they're adopting and they're not adopting sustainable solutions for green energy and energy efficiency measures. Okay. Regarding the policy guidelines, we're expecting to provide some of them during the next year, 2023, in the deliverables that we're going to submit then. Regarding the production of practice subjects, we have made, and they are available, 21 practice subjects about all the agricultural sectors, and the target is to reach the 50. That they will be reached for sure during the next year. We have made 24 regional innovation workshops in all the countries of the project. As we said before, we have made 2 transnational workshops, and there's 1 to go, and will be in 1 month, as we said before, and 1 brokerage event will be conducted during June 2023 in Brussels. So thank you very much for your attention. In the next slide, you can see my message. Yeah, thank you very much for your attention. You can visit our platform, you can visit our social media, and we're here to answer every question that you have by email or any other direct communication. Thanks.
Thank you, Konstantinos. Yes, well, I was also gonna say the same. If someone from the audience is interested in the project, they can also visit the website. It's agrofossilfree.com.eu. I think my colleague Camino has shared the address via chat. So now we are gonna have the presentation of our colleague Mike Kaminiaris. He's a project manager of Agenso, a company based also in Greece. He's going to present us the platform, which is one of the most interesting results of the project. So please, Mike, go on.
Hello, everyone, again. Thank you, Mirentsou. As Mirentsou said, and also Konstantinos mentioned earlier, our platform is the main tool with aim to contact public and communication of our tools that are into the platform. I will share now my screen just to explain you how the platform works, how it is structured, and its general specifications. So the landing page of the platform, which you can access in platform.agrofossilfree.eu, is this. This is developed as a multilingual tool where the language selection is available on the top right of the home page for all interested people who want to see and browse the content of the platform in their local languages. In the main page, there is a welcome message regarding the content of the platform, where you can be also informed about what is inside this tool. So 5 main categories of, let's say, FEFTS, as we call them, are structured and put into the platform. For example, if I want to search for not a research project, let's go to a commercial technology, for example. It can be a clean energy supply, a clean and energy efficiency improvement, or a soil carbon sequestration. It is easy to use by making clicks into the respective icons. User can navigate and go to a proper result. For example, the renewable energy that I want to find a solution for is solar. At the final step, the presentation of the technologies is in a user-friendly way, where the title, the image, and part of a short description is presented. Also, there are many filters on the left area of this page, where it is worth mentioning also that those filters are interactive, meaning that due to the large amount of the information that is put into our platform and the diversified topics that the user can access, we have selected and we have opted for the selection of making those filters interactive. For example, if a user needs something specific that is in 2 categories, this is possible. And also, if you want to hide your previous selection and go for something specific, another search, this is also possible. Now, regarding the way to search FEFTS, there are 3 ways. The first one that I showed you that is being possible through the buttons used. The second one is the search bar, in which you can type whatever you want to search. And the third one is the selection of the Browse FEFTS solution, that is this button in the home page on the top area, that leads you directly to the final search page without, though, any pre-selected filter. And the user is able to select anything from the existing interactive filters. Apart from this, user can also log into the platform by creating a profile, a customized profile, in order to have access to more features of the tool. This is a simple process that requires only an email address and a setting of a password in order to log in. And this gives the ability to the user to provide new FEFTS. This is a crucial part of the platform. Apart from the interactivity in the smaller sections and the user interface of the tool, we wanted to develop, and we have developed a tool that it is interactive with people, meaning that if you have a research paper or a commercial product or something that is related to our project, it is for us, it would be a pleasure for us to add it in the platform. So we urge you to become members of this society, to put your ideas in. Those ideas are screened by experts on each topic, which means that only the state-of-the-art and the relevant, of course, content will be published into our platform. So that's all by my side. And before closing, I would like to give a simple overview of some machinery or FEFTS that are included, just to show you how it is structured in the final page of the result preview. For example, the technology is presented like this, with an image gallery here, a general description below the image gallery, and 4 distinct tabs. In these tabs, the FEFTS specifications based on the category of the FEFTS are presented. Then the provider and the source information are available in the second tab, together with the link to go directly to the official website of the manufacturer or the owner of these FEFTS. In the third tab, there are some material like files and audiovisual material like links to YouTube, etc. And in the final part, the last tab, there is the assessment tab, where the user that has input this specific FEFTS has evaluated some questions, some topics regarding 3 main pillars, general pillar, an environmental pillar, and finally a socioeconomic pillar, giving, let's say, an overview assessment of these FEFTS. The plus thing of the logged in, of the registered users, is that it is possible to assess a specific FEFTS if you are signed up. So, for example, if I'm signed in, I can go to this button that appears only upon login, that gives me the ability to give an evaluation for this FEFTS by selecting drop-down questions from this menu that are correspondingly the same questions with the above ranked, let's say, assessment. Now, some other, let's say, tools that are into our platform. We have clean energy supply solutions like this solar glass, which is used for clean energy supply. we have, for example, irrigation management systems for water reduction and energy efficiency of crops. We have biogas plants that the user can see and learn about. We also have green LED lighting systems for buildings or for greenhouses. So as you can see, there is a variety of solutions in diverse topics. And we urge you to take a look on them, to add them. That's all by my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Michalis, can I add something here?
Of course.
In about, let's say, some days, in the next month, we will have prepared the decision support toolkit in our platform. So again, so is working extensively on this at the moment. And stay alerted, because the decision support toolkit will be very interesting for each farmer that wants to input his data and receive some guidance about the solutions that he could adopt.
Just a small comment on what Konstantinos said. This tool will work on a very easy to use way and on a user-friendly way, meaning that if you want to see what is, let's say, proper for your needs, you will give a short reply by selecting the reply of a question in, let's say, 4 or 5 questions, which is less than 1 minute. And the tool will provide you the most relevant solutions to your needs.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I thank you, Konstantinos, to know about this platform. We hope all the people attending the workshop now are very curious and interested on the platform and start using the platform very soon. And now we would like to know more about you, the attendants, asking you some questions, a few questions through Mentimeter. So please take your phone or your computer and go to this site and enter the code, or just make a photo of the QR code. If anyone has any problem, just let us know. So the code is 35319409. Okay, so let's start. So we want to know from which country are you from? Okay. So we see that many people are coming from Greece, Germany, Spain, France, Poland. Okay. Some people didn't want to answer, I think.
Sorry. Could you paste the code in the chat, please? Sorry, I missed it.
Okay. Okay, in which field do you work? So we have most of the people are researchers. Part of the people are coming from the industry, and then we have some advisors. Okay. This is interesting for us because at the end we will have an open discussion, so it's good to know where the people work. Okay. Then we move to the next one. So what is the main source through which you learned about the project? We want to know how you knew about the project. Colleague from work, the website, a member of the project, internet. Okay. Okay, so we have a lot of people who knew the project through a member. Okay. Website, social media, good. Okay. And what kind of FEFTS would you like to find in the platform that Mike has already presented? Okay, training materials, energy efficiency, machine, commercial, okay. Financing mechanism. Commercial technology, the most, yeah, okay. Okay. Efficient solutions, a lot of, yeah, a lot of answers, okay. Okay, then, yes, so thank you for answering. I will stop sharing this. So now we are glad to have a colleague of us, Michael Norman, who comes from the Aarhus University in Denmark. He's going to talk about the main results of the regional workshops. As Konstantinos explained you before, during the last months, we have, well, in the project, we have 8 hubs, and each hub had to prepare 3 regional workshops in their country. The first one was focused on open field agriculture. The second one was about greenhouses, and the third one was about livestock. So Michael is going to present the main results of these regional workshops. Please, Michael. Hello.
Hello, everyone. Yes, and thank you for joining this this online workshop as well. But I have to find out, do I present this correctly or? Mirenzo, can you see my screen on Teams now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, so all technical issues are done. So, but before also these online workshops, we have actually in the project applied 24 regional innovation workshops, and that is around in 8 different countries, 8 different hubs, organized by partners in each of these 8 hubs. And I'm going to just highlight some of the results from these 24 regional innovation workshops. And of course, there has been a lot of discussions in each of these workshops, but I have tried to what you call try to translate this into some overall results from the workshop. So this is just an impression from some of the different workshops where people were gathered locally and discussed different topics. In the project, we have divided into 3 themes: open field agriculture, livestock, and greenhouse or protected crop theme, where the idea was to discuss all kinds of barriers for applying FEFTS, possibilities, or how can we enable FEFTS integration, and how can we mitigate FEFTS integration in these 3 different themes. The participants overall of all 8 hubs is divided into these different categories of attendance. You can see that scientific community was quite high. Industry was also well presented. NGOs or civil society was the less number of attendance. And there were some just some general public people with some interest, but not associated to any industry or anything. Then there were a few policymakers and media, and also a few investors. But what was most interesting is that the target group, I mean the people who is going to implement FEFTS technologies, that are the customers, the farmers or crop producers and livestock producers, or dairy and so on. And also the advisors, and actually some of the results from the workshops showed that it is really important with good advisory services and consultants for the implementation of FEFTS. Actually, it should be improved in the future, but I will come back to that. So more than half of the attendance was actually our I mean the end users and consultants for FEFTS. So that is quite good. So this is just an overview of what we asked the workshops to come around. First of all, we have the barriers, the pain points. Why are you not implementing a specific FEFTS technology that you can think of? And then the next thing is what can you see as enablers? That means ideas, recommendations, and who is supposed to enable the FEFTS integration. And also they should also list down the popularity of FEFTS. I mean, there were at each of these 24 workshops, there were different FEFTS presented, or at least discussed at the workshops, and we got a very good. And I'll come back to the list of these FEFTS that were most discussed. And we also asked them to discuss the needs and relevance of FEFTS, and last also the mitigation. I mean, what policies and what should be done, research topics and so on, what should be done to mitigate the FEFTS integration. And then that all lines up with the conditions. I mean, what are the actual problems in the different regions that they should try to solve? Is it the energy costs? Is it practical issues? That could many, but mainly costs, of course, when it comes to problems. And then also the opinion about energy consumption. What do they think? Can they reduce the energy consumption? Can they become more energy efficient and so on? That was also discussed at the workshops. Good. Then just coming back to this with the list of FEFTS that was actually discussed and highlighted most frequent mentioned during the 24 workshops. And as was mentioned previously for the AgEnergyPlatform, there are some division of FEFTS technology, and one of them is soil carbon sequestration, and that obviously has a lot to do with agricultural field practices, and there were especially these 3 topics that were discussed. I mean, production of bio-based mineral fertilizers, which is connected to biogas plants and other means of production of bio-based fertilizers. And then conservation agriculture was also highlighted a lot, and then increasing the soil organic matter over time by cover crops or crop diversification and so on. But that was the main 3 topics mentioned on the soil carbon sequestration. If we move to clean energy supply, there was, of course, a lot of different technologies that was discussed, and geothermal was mentioned a lot, biogas, biomethane, and so on, and storage, energy storage was also discussed a lot. What the possibilities are, and then wind energy as a energy supply, and photovoltaics, of course, also mentioned. And you can say that solar or photovoltaics was very much discussed in the southern part of Europe, where geothermal and hydrogen power plants was more to the Central Europe and Northern Europe. But I would also say that photovoltaics was also discussed in this region. But when we come to the southern part of Europe, hydrogen and geothermal and wind turbines was not discussed as much as further north in Europe. And then this last section taken again from the AgEnergyPlatform to keep this consistent, the energy efficiency improvement. That was mostly focused on agricultural feed practices and vehicles, and then of course tools. And tools, if I take that first, that was especially this about automatic management of livestock buildings and greenhouses. That was very much discussed in the workshops concerning livestock and greenhouses. That was quite common. And then another thing that was discussed on maybe mostly on livestock and open field agriculture, that was the climate impact calculation tool. A very good tool that can actually calculate and estimate the impact on different FEFTS integration. And so that was really, it was demanded, and in some countries it was already available in some to some degree. Else it was most about changing from fossil vehicles into renewable energy source vehicles, as you can see here. And when it comes to agricultural feed practices, precision agriculture were very much discussed all over the regions. The irrigation part was mostly in the southern part of Europe, that it could be improved by new pump system and solar powered irrigation pumps and so on, and also all cultivation procedures during a crop growing season could be improved, and also replacing conventional or traditional tillage systems with conservation agriculture. Yes. And there were things about lighting that was mostly related to greenhouses, heating and cooling of both horticultural and livestock constructions. That was again very common, that there was a focus when we are having buildings, we need heating and cooling for animals or for protected crops. And then the last one that was mentioned in a couple of workshops was the e-learning platforms for training of people, information and training of people. There are some a couple of EU projects that has dealt with that in the past, and maybe there could be some results of this that can be used in this context. I have to speed up, sorry, I think. And some of the conditions and barriers for the transition to FEFTS, of course, economics was repeated for every workshop, and education and knowledge transfer. As I mentioned before, the advisory services needs an improvement in this area, and also things about aging of growers and so on. And then the last one that was mentioned all over Europe is the regulations and bureaucracy issues. And there are some, things about the subsidies. How should they be given in the future? There were good suggestions of how this can be changed from what it is today and what it could be in the future. Enablers. One of the things that were focused on was, of course, fertilizer production, which is one of the high producers of climate gases, and there were a lot of focus on how to produce fertilizers and or for fuel from some of the waste and manure from agriculture. And then there were a lot of recommendations to look at the entire system or energy cycle, and not so much on individual FEFTS technologies. So the FEFTS should be measured or examined during the whole energy circle, such that the whole picture is given. So one FEFTS technology might not solve the complete issue. We need more technologies in a row to be able to get synergy effects and etc. And to solve the problem. So yes, intelligence in conversion of biomass, and that is again, of course, about how do we store this energy from renewable energy sources. And then there were also some issues in some of the countries about the infrastructure for not only providing the alternative energy, but it was also about the grid. Does the grid actually support this change from fossil fuel to electricity and so on? And then there was a demand or wish that digitization, automation, and decision support systems could actually support the transition to more FEFTS-oriented systems and crop production and livestock. And something that also came up in many hubs is the reduced interest rates and assistance in the payment of the investment. There were some difficulties in seeing how they could take this complete new technology, implement it, and pay for the costs. That is one of the obstacles. So reducing the interest rate and assistance in repayment could be one solution to support this transition to more FEFTS-oriented technologies. And one thing that was quite interesting, I jump to the last one, from the results of the regional workshops, it came up with actually 32 specific and various research projects objectives. So people were really interested, or the participants were really interested in coming up with some project objectives, and it was very nicely divided into all 8 hubs. So there are 32 very interesting project objectives to look into here.
Sorry,
yeah.
Michael,
Yeah.
we have to hurry up because
Yes,
we
I
have...
think I will. I think this is the.
Thank
I think
you.
this is the last 2 ones. Yeah. So, and again, mitigations, lowering the costs, and make the subsidies seems much more directly and less bureaucratic. And yeah, yeah. And then one of the last ones that was also repeated is the relations between the new CAP and the FEFTS adoption. That is, according to the participants in the workshops, missing at the moment. So there's especially something there to look into. Yeah, and then another thing that was also repeated, the policy for the transition. It should encourage a lot more the pioneering entrepreneurs. That's again the people who would like to show a good example. They should also have some sort of support, advice, economic support to show that this is actually operational, first of all, and then after some time, the pioneering can show that it's also self-sustainable. But in the beginning, there should be a specific policy to encourage this. Yeah, and then also there was an idea of forming small stakeholder groups that is actually integrating also governments and so on, such that everyone with an interest in this is actually part of these stakeholder groups on a national or on a national level. Yes, I think that was all. Sorry, it took a little bit more time. Sorry, but I'm finished now.
Okay, thank you very much, Michael. Thank you. And now we would like to know the opinion of the audience about the last topics presented for Michael. So please take your phone and go to menti.com again with the same code. So you can just refresh the page and we will start. So for which of the following energy production technologies are you more interested about? Okay, so we see the first option of the audience is solar. The second one is biomass, biofuels, biogas, and any energy storage system. The fourth, heat pumps. The fifth, hydro, and the sixth, wind turbines. Okay. You can select more than one because it's a ranking option. So, okay. Okay, let's continue to the second one. For which of the following on-farm energy efficiency strategies are you more interested about? So this is again a ranking question. You can select the first option that you think is the most interesting. So we have the first precision agriculture, conservation agriculture, efficient lighting, okay, efficient vehicles, tools electrification. So the first one is still conservation agriculture, okay. Efficient vehicles, Okay. Okay. Okay, and the next one, which barriers do you consider the most important for a transition to FEFTS in your country? We remind that FEFTS are fossil energy-free technologies and strategies. So the first one will be regulations and bureaucracy, economic. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
There's a fight.
Yeah. Tennis match. Okay. And what about the presented FEFTS needs? Please rank according to your country. I think we have this already. No. No. So according to the FEFTS that Michael had presented, you have to rank again, depending. So according to your country, what do you think about? Okay. The answers are maybe quite long, but I hope you can read them in your mobile phone. So we have the first one, agricultural field practices for improvement, and the second one for soil carbon sequestration. Photovoltaics. Okay. Okay. We move to the next one because we are a bit late. But so the next one will be, do you know the difference between biogas and biomethane? Yes. Okay. Okay, so most of the people know about it. But we wanted to ask you this because, well, the second participant that we have in the workshop, his name is Marc Reinhard. He works as international affairs consultant at the German Biogas Association. His main tasks are international project management, biogas knowledge transfer, and biogas trainings. So if anyone has any question about biogas, he can, or you can just put it in the chat or raise your hand, or wait until Marc has finished, and you can ask him anything about biogas. So please, Marc.
Thank you, Mirencu. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for the kind introduction. Very happy that the German Biogas Association can be part of this workshop of AgroFossilFree project. Very interesting, and I'm also very happy what I could see up to now, that yes, biogas is an interesting topic for you. So yeah, I will just give you a glimpse about how biogas can help to make renewable and sustainable agriculture. So first of all, I will give you a short introduction on what is GBA, German Biogas Association. Then about the German biogas development, which is very linked to agriculture. That's why it's very interesting. And then also some biogas basics. Also, as I saw in the poll now, that you're a lot of experts already. But just to give you an overview when we're talking about biogas, what's in it. And then some feedstocks, interesting feedstocks, especially for agriculture, advantages, and then also we already heard a topic, biomethane and digestate, which is the organic fertilizer. And yeah, with that, you can start the presentation. Perfect. So the German Biogas Association is the world's biggest biogas association. We have about 4,700 members throughout Germany. Basically, they are operators of biogas plants. So they are farmers, basically, of agricultural farmers, and also a lot of technology providers. So we have a lot of manufacturers, a lot of companies working in the biogas sector, but also research institutions, public authorities, and feedstock providers, and even interested individuals. And the main objective of our association is to promote biogas worldwide, actually. And what another interesting fact is that we have 40 professionals, employees working at GBA. So with that, next slide, please. We have also an international department where I'm working at as well with 7 other colleagues, and we are supporting the international biogas market development. That means Europe, but also globally, also especially emerging and developing countries. So we do implement international projects, do consultancy services, and a lot, what was already mentioned also, what is key also for your project and for the development of AgroFossilFree is the trainings, education, knowledge transfer in terms of biogas, and also to support biogas associations worldwide. And here are some organizations that we work with. And now we come to the German biogas development, which I already mentioned, is very linked to the agricultural sector, because basically, yeah, biogas was born in the agriculture sector. The graph here is from 1992, but of course, biogas is much older than this. That's the graph because the foundation of the German Biogas Association was 1992, so we have just 30 years anniversary, but biogas development is much older. You could say about 50 years maybe of biogas development, and that's important also because that means there's a lot of experience already made with biogas in Germany, and of course also in Europe. So basically you can see the plants that are installed in Germany. We have about 9,700 plants in 2021. And those are basically agriculture plants, also dedicated waste digestion plants. And what is not considered here is sewage treatment and landfill gas. That's important in this graph. And you can see also the installed capacity is about 5.8 gigawatt installed electrical capacity. And basically, what the graph also shows that from 2000, Germany introduced the Renewable Energy Act, which is our renewable energy law. And with that comes a feed-in tariff for renewable energy and also for biogas. You were mentioning framework conditions. As you can see, the biogas booster was really, in that sense, the Renewable Energy Act, which also counted for biogas and really boosted the development of biogas plant in Germany. Next slide, please. So here's some other statistics that might be interesting. You can focus on the red circle. CO2 reduction. We're talking about greenhouse gas emission reductions with biogas. We saved around 21 million tons of CO2 equivalent. And I will come in a minute. Why is that so much? And there's also the turnover. So for our economy, it's about 9.8 billion euro is the biogas economy. I was talking about that there are a lot of companies developing with this biogas development. So that's very considerable for the German economy as well. And of course, job creation. And when we talk about jobs, we talk about decentralized jobs. So really in rural areas, there's a rule over the sump. You can say for 1 megawatt installed capacity, there are about 10 jobs generated by biogas plants. So that you have some numbers. And another interesting number on top of the graph here, or the table, you can see that we have biogas plants, but we have also 238 biomethane plants already in 2021. So biomethane, that means upgrading of the biogas, which has different gases, methane, and of course also carbon dioxide. Getting rid of the dioxide, separate the dioxide, carbon dioxide, you have pure methane, and that means biomethane is similar to natural gas quality. So that's also important because the trend in Germany and also in Europe is towards biomethane. Next slide, please. So now when we talk about biogas, you can see the happy cows and the biogas plant. And just for those to get us all on the same page, when we talk about biogas, what is biogas? What's in there? So is it like a cow? Next slide, please. And definitely cow is a very good example, not just because we are in the AgroFossilFree workshop, but because the cow, basically what's in the stomach of the cow are the bacteria that digest the biomass, which is the feedstock. On the left side, you can see the feedstock, which is the input material, the biomass. Basically, all biomass which can be digested, which is not lignocellulose biomass. I mean, it's also possible, but it's harder for the bacteria to degrade the material. So basically, that's the feedstocks. We will come to that in a minute. Also, what kind of feedstocks are interesting, especially for agricultural sector. And then there's the digester, which is the heart of the biogas plant, where the bacteria, and that's important, they digest without oxygen. That means in anaerobic conditions. And they digest the material and they produce biogas. And this biogas can be used in several utilization pathways. I will come to that also in another slide. Just to give an idea, of course, the cow needs energy. It gets energy out of the food, the feedstock. There is a digestate, which is basically what comes out after the digestion process. Is an output. It's also a valuable output because it's an organic fertilizer. So you can substitute mineral fertilizer, also an interesting topic for the agriculture sector. And of course, I have the energy output, which is also heat and power. Next slide, please. And now we transfer our image of the cow to the process of the biogas plant, which comes from the left side. You can see the different type of feedstocks. For us, from the agricultural sector speaking, of course, we have the animal leftovers, we have the plant leftovers, harvest leftovers, and of course, we have also energy crops, which can be fed. Of course, besides that, we have a lot of waste streams from industry and also from households that can be used in a biogas plant. Then you can see the digester, which is, as I already mentioned, the heart of our biogas plant, digester or fermenter or the reactor tank. In this case, you can see the most common one, especially in agricultural plants, and especially also in Germany and also in Europe used, which is the continuous stirred tank reactor. So you can see the material comes in, it's the green material, the bacteria digest the biomass, and they produce the gas, which you can see are the bubbles. You have a leftover, which is after the digestion process is the digestate, and that can be used as an organic fertilizer. So we have a material production on one side, and then of course we have our biogas production, and then it comes to the energy production side, which can be used, of course, in a combined heat and power plant, a CHP. And as the name says, I can produce electricity, of course. I can use this electricity when I'm thinking about the farm level. Of course, I can have a own consumption. I have a own electricity demand, which is manifold on a farm. Thinking about all the farm building, but also some electric vehicles possible, or machinery. But also I have, and that's very important, especially also for agricultural level, is to use the heat of the combined heat and power plant. And how can I use the heat? Of course, on a farm level, I can use it either in to drying processes. That means you can dry wood, which is very common. Wood, I can also dry, of course, cereals. But I can also use the heat, for example, for fish tanks or greenhouses. So heat use is key, because when we talk about biogas, it's not just about electricity production, and that makes the big difference if you compare it, for example, to solar PV or to wind, which is basically electricity production. With biogas, you always have to consider we are not just producing electricity, we're producing heat, and we should use this heat. It's very valuable. And then, of course, the other utilization pathway, which is getting more and more popular in Europe and also in Germany, is biomethane. I already mentioned you can upgrade the biogas, which has several gases, most important methane, of course, and carbon dioxide. I separate carbon dioxide. Also, I have a use for this. That is another presentation, but you can also use the carbon dioxide that you separate. And then you have the pure methane, 97% of methane, which is basically natural gas. And then you have all the utilization pathways that you can use for natural gas, which is, of course, also electricity. I can feed it into the grid. I can use it in a CHP, decentralized. I can also use, of course, the heat and cold. And then another one, and that's maybe the also very interesting, is how to defossilize our transport sector, because transport is always the hardest part of decarbonizing. And I can produce biomethane. Of course, I can use it as a sustainable transportation fuel. Either I can use it in a filling station, so I can use if there's a natural gas grid, I can also transport it and using it in a filling station, or I can have even a filling station on my farm, which is also very interesting. And there are some examples already in Germany that are using the filling station for their own vehicles, or also for external that want to fill their biomethane vehicles. That means normally it's compressed natural gas, but biological produced. That's very important. So bio CNG. But I'm very happy also that I have just to do the teaser here for the colleague from New Holland, John, that will present you the biomethane tractor, which is for the farm level very interesting for this transportation fuel. So next slide, please. We already talked about feedstocks. You can, I think you have to press another one, then our biogas plant appears. Here we go. So basically, on the farm level, we concentrate on the three input feedstocks on the left side, which are of course energy crops in Europe and especially in Germany. Also, due to our Renewable Energy Act, it's a lot of energy crops. But what is even more important, and also considering the greenhouse gas emission reduction, is animal byproducts, so liquid and solid manure basically, also slaughterhouse wastes, and fat separator contents and flotation tailings, but also of course the vegetable byproducts from harvest residues and others. And of course I can also use other industrial commercial waste and household waste, organic fraction in a biogas plant. So there's just that you have an idea of the manifold feedstocks, which are our input material, which is the biomass that is fed into the biogas plant. Next, please. So now we come to the advantages. I already mentioned, of course, there's the production of energy. We have storable and flexible energy source. I think that's, well, in nowadays, especially in the last months, it's getting clear for everyone, especially in Europe, what that means. So independence of energy source, decentralized local energy production, also flexible production. That means we produce when wind and solar is not working. And then we have the waste management, a circular economy. We have the business and job creation advantage, biofertilizer production out of our digestate. And of course, the green tile, maybe it's also very important when we talk about defossilizing, is climate and environment protection. It's avoidance of methane emissions. Just giving one example, if you have if you don't digest your manure, of course, there is if it's open digested, there is a big methane creation. That means a big greenhouse gas emission produced, because methane, as we know, it's about factor 25 of CO2 equivalent. So that's a really huge potential to use the methane, to use the slurry and the manure of our animals, and in a closed system like it is in a biogas plant, and to produce energy, and of course to reduce the emissions. Then a substitution of fossil fuels, of course, when I produce energy from renewable energy, as it is biogas. Substitution of mineral fertilizer. Next challenge for globally is shortage of mineral fertilizer, and also, of course, all the emission that are produced when I produce mineral fertilizers. So I can use the digestate as organic fertilizers. Also interesting for organic farming, sorry. And then, of course, not just the fertilizer, but also all the nutrient recycling. That means I bring back the nutrients to the soil. Humus production is the keyword. And of course, auto reduction also is important in a biogas plant. Next slide, please. Yeah, just to sum up, so biogas is climate protection in terms of energy, but also circular economy. The manure fermentation, if I use the manure in a biogas plant, and I even can produce with some energy crops, I can enhance biodiversity, which is also an important issue. Next slide, please. Yes, biogas upgrading to biomethane. I already talked about this topic. So you upgrade the biogas to biomethane. Then, so next slide, please. It's perfect. We already had that. And then you have several utilization pathways. I already spoke most of them. Transportation fuel, I think that's the interesting part of biomethane. You can either do it to liquefied biomethane or compressed biomethane, which is the abbreviation is bio-LNG or bio-CNG. Now, the colleague from New Holland will present you the bio-CNG path with the tractor, which is one application, of course, very interesting for the farms. So very happy that the colleague from New Holland can present this. And of course, you can also use the CNG in cars, in buses. Then also heavy-duty vehicles use a lot of bio-LNG, especially also in the Nordic countries already. So the strategy is clear to heavy-duty, which is hard to electrify. So there's the big advantage of biomethane. And of course, also in ships and trains, there's a ferry, for example, in the Lake of Constance that use bio-CNG. And of course, I can use it in boilers and burners. Next, please. Digestate I already mentioned also. It's talking about circular economy, the material side now speaking, what comes out of the biogas plant. So I produce a valuable fertilizer. It can be used from the organic feedstock. All the micronutrients that are fed into the plant, they also are in the digestate. That's very important. So feedstock is key. That means also I need high quality feedstock. I have a high quality output in the digestate and the organic fertilizer. And of course, I produce the humus. I enhance the humus production on all the ingredients like nitrogen, phosphorus, carbon. And of course, I reduce the waste amount of the organic matter, which otherwise has to be treated. Next slide, please. Here's just an example of circular economy from the city of Berlin. It's in this case, it's not agriculture plant. It's a dedicated waste digestion plant. What I wanted to show with this is that we have on the energy side, which is the blue part, we have the biogas and biomethane production. We use it for the vehicles, in this case, for the garbage trucks of the city of Berlin. We have to use the green side, which is the material, which is plants that are grown in agricultural products. They are organic waste. The citizens of Berlin, they throw it away in their dedicated bins for organic waste, and then it goes to the biogas plant, and biogas and biomethane is produced. So we have the closed energy circle here on the right side, and we have on the left side, also very important, the closed material and nutrient recovery cycle. Thank you. Next, please. And with that, I can conclude. I think we talked a lot about the usage of the biogas and biomethane. Important, biogas is a natural process in the absence of air. It's a closed system. AD production, anaerobic digestion. Feedstock is key, so our input material is the most important that I have to consider. Digestate can be a valuable fertilizer, depending also on the input material, of course. And yeah, and as you could see in the development, biogas is an approved state-of-the-art technology. It's not new. There are 9,800 biogas plants just in Germany in operation. So we have a lot of experience since decades. And with that, next slide, please. I conclude and thinking of the time. If you are more interested in knowing about some different topics, just one slide back, you can, of course, go to our homepage. We have several brochures, also specialized in digestate management, and also using the bio-waste to biogas, which are very important and interesting for you. So you can get yeah, a more detailed idea. And of course, I'm also here for questions, and yeah, you can contact me anytime. So thanks a lot for your attention.
Thank you, Marc, for the fast and interesting presentation. Thank you very much. And I don't know if there is any question from the attendants. If no questions. Okay, so now is the turn of Gilles Mayer. I don't know, Gilles, if you want to share your own presentation or we do it?
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So Gilles is, well, he's coming from New Holland. He's a global head of tractor alternative fuels in the product management department at New Holland. He is currently coordinating all alternative fuel activities. Gilles is going to talk us about the new biomethane tractor. So please, Gilles.
Thank you very much. And Marc, I must say that it's a fantastic introduction and teasing presentation, so I can go further into biomethane. Thank you very much for that. Yes, so I want to share with you, and you can go to the next slide, in fact, what we're working on and where we're coming from, who we are. So first, New Holland, for those who are not familiar with us, we consider ourselves as a farming specialist because we are an agricultural industry manufacturer. We do tractors, harvester, construction range for agriculture only, soil management and crop management. So that includes, this is what we consider in the industry quite a full liner. After that, on the next slide, we started a clean energy leading path since 2006, way before the Paris Agreement. And in fact, we went through different research areas on alternative fuels. We started with biodiesel, we went into hydrogen, and then we came back, we went to ethanol, and we came back to methane because it was clear that the methane was certainly the biofuel to be. Biogas and then biomethane, as Marc has well explained, being the one that needs that would certainly go into the most circular economy possible, using from waste in the agricultural environment and consumed and used in the agricultural environment. So in fact, in terms of circular economy, that made a lot of sense. The other point is that it was clear that methane can be processed in the agricultural world. No need to go through a too centralized production. And methane is a gas which has more energy stored inside than any other biogas, including hydrogen, for instance. So this is why we came to methane, and the path took us to delivering the first serial production in 2021, the T6-180, which is the first agricultural methane. So why are we started in 2006, and these are agricultural European figures. It's clear that agriculture is responsible today for over 10% of the CO2 emissions in Europe. And on top of that, the machinery comes to adding another 1%. So altogether, somewhere around 11 and 12% of the whole CO2 emissions. So of course, we have our task to go into a reduction there. Next, please. And so that's one of the aspects we take into account. The biggest aspect is the challenges for farmers to go into this going into the circular economy path. They are still facing and they suffer on a regular basis from increasing cost. So that what they're doing, the machinery they buy also, they need to stay in the global regulation, under the global regulation. And this is increasing their cost on a regular basis, either from fertilizing, either from machinery, from infrastructure, from security, from health, and name it, it's there. Second point is that the fuel, the fertilizer, and the water and electricity follow, as particularly since a year. We're all very conscious about that. Everything is increasing and very unstable, making it extremely difficult, impossible for most of the farmers today to really build on something and develop. The question is now more on survival. And the last thing is that livestock farmers are the one that are certainly facing the massive pressure on dairy and meat prices from food distribution stores and the wholesalers. So they have a huge pressure from the distribution with giant customers in the food channel, and they are the one facing that with big pressure on the price. So we take all that into account. And that's taking me to the next slide, where today, as Marc was explaining, the energy independent farm is basically a biogas farm. It's everything what our colleague from German Biogas Association has explained, but we go beyond that. And for us, the next level of energy independent farm is a livestock farm. And I'm going to explain how and why. So next slide, please. So what we did, we first, of course, we came with this methane tractor, and obviously the methane tractor is the natural gas level. There's the fossil fuel origin and there's the biomethane origin, and the fossil fuel is something that which is becoming inaccessible right now. So we since already in 2021 invested into a company called Bennamann. And Bennamann is a small, innovative R&D company, and their field of innovation is to produce methane, but with an ability to store methane. And we already have with Bennamann a pool of 6 farms already running their operations using this application. And together, when we combine the technology of what Bennamann infrastructure in order to use the slurry, bring it to upgrading up to biomethane, and use it for any energy requirement, including, as was mentioned, fuel. In fact, we clearly have a negative carbon footprint at the level of a livestock farm. So this is what I want to share with you today. Next slide, please. So what's radically new? Well, this is the process that you do understand. First, the grass, the livestock eats the grass. We capture the slurry from the cows. It could be pigs, it could be whatever livestock. And we cover that into a slurry lagoon, just a little bit like a mini digester. But we cover it and we capture the biogas. The radically new Bennamann approach is that there are several levels of storage of this gas, which means that we don't need a continuous production of gas. So there are months where the livestock is in the field. There are months where the production is slower. And so we still have a continuous production of gas, but we don't need the input on a regular basis. So this is the most important from the biogas process. The other aspect is that on the processing part, this investment is something that can be shared among different farmers because this is a mobile unit and a cluster of different farms can share the investment. And since we can store the gas, this processing is not a continuous one, but it could come every 3 days, every 1 week, or something like that. So it can really be shared among the different farmers, reducing significantly the investment. And this processing upgrades to biomethane that we store again, and this can be compressed. It can be liquefied as well. And anyway, this can, and as it was mentioned before, the liquid methane is interesting for transportation, heavy duty, and you need to know that liquid methane takes 4 to 5 times less storage space than the compressed gas. So there's certainly, for any logistic purpose, the next level of usage of biomethane. And then you can you use this in this case compressed gas for fuel, heat, electricity, and moving machines, as it was explained earlier. Next slide, please. Now, through the different farms that we're running right now, when we cover the slurry and we cover in a way that it's really sealed and we take the humidity out, we have a clear and a very important, let's say, capture of methane and CO2. So you mentioned earlier that it was 25 times more CO2 containing, every kilo of methane has 25 times more CO2. That's absolutely true, but over 20 years, it's 86 times. So every methane slurry, every slurry which is not covered, which is poured into whatever river, pond, and so on, as we see in many countries, over 20 years, 86 times more nasty than the CO2. So when you do that, when you take the you stop using red diesel or whatever usage for the heating on the farm, when you stop using the fossil fuel for your machinery, an example, one tractor, because there's not so many machines today which are running on methane so far. And when you also use the digestate, as it was explained, a little bit like in the biogas example, when you use the digestate being the result of the separation of the gas, the CO2 from the rest of the slurry, in fact, you come up with a production or a CO2 reduction, which is for a cow of level of a farm, of 150 cows. This farm is able to reduce at about 140 UK household carbon footprints. So that means almost one cow can reduce one household carbon footprint per year. You imagine that? So here we're talking about democratized, multiplying the number of biogas and biomethane plants up to a level of livestock, 150 cows on this example. And we know that in the UK it's 70 and average cows in the farm. So we're not talking about 100% of the livestock. But since our upgrading material can be shared between different farmers, there's no limit to go and to multiply the number of farms that can suddenly produce their own electricity, their own heating, their own fuel, as you mentioned. And the NPK reduction, in fact, we know now by experience also that we completely eliminate the P and the K, and we reduce significantly the N from the NPK. So we have, in fact, much more than 30% reduction today. And so the bill for fertilizing and reducing for more than half. So when you go on the next slide, I don't know why I can't see the bottom line. There was a takeaway sentence, but okay. Okay, so when you add to precision farming, and we know that we're all very sensible to the development of precision farming, in fact, to reduce the number of passage in the field, to reduce to spray your digestate in the best way, to use technology like near sensor also to enhance what kind of fertilizer you need to spray, but also the natural or organic one that you're spraying in the same way. You also can enhance the quality of your digestate because you are filtering through a near sensor all the waste that's coming in. So you can also drive the quality from that. And then through Internet of Things, you also, because it's quite new fuel, it's not available everywhere, it's clear. Through Internet of Things, IoT, in fact, we're able also to show where, to map where you are, where is the location for your either in field or a filling station for biomethane, biomethane especially, and giving you the distance and the fastest way to go there, just like you have in your car today. And that enables you to drive your autonomy in the best way. Because, of course, unfortunately, and the infrastructure to make biomethane available is not so developed. But with the precision farming, we're taking that on board as well. So when you add on the next slide the three technologies, in fact, first you equip your livestock farm with the infrastructure. Second, you use the appropriate machinery, and third, you use the precision farming to drive the quality in and drive the optimization, the productivity out. I would say that you are in a very clear negative footprint, CO2 footprint path. On farm, you stabilize your cost at a lower level. Your energy is a little bit available 24/7. You mentioned earlier that there was a subject about the proximity of the grid. Well, here you don't need the grid. The soil quality enhancement is significant with the reduction of chemical fertilizing and the very clear optimizing of the organic fertilizing. On top of that, when you cover your slurry lagoons, you do drive clean water collection. One of our farms, okay, it's in the UK, so maybe it's rainier than elsewhere, but within 3 days they capture a week water for the whole livestock. So there's no consuming of whatever water, and on top of that, it's true that the production of the biomethane can also go into an activity of cleaning water. So there's also a service for the community around the farm that is going to develop. The CO2 separated from the biogas to the methane can be made available for vegetable growing. And when you cover the slurry anyway, what happens is that you reduce the smell. So for farmers that are near communities, it's a much better integrator. And on top of that, for the health of everybody, it's also a big improvement against germs, bugs, and so on, for the whole environment. And for the community, it's clear that the energy, the clean fuel, at a lower and stable cost with water treatment capabilities is something where the farm is going to become a lot more useful for its environment. Not to mention the rejection of the NPK with all the public criticism that exists towards the farmers. So this is going really the right way into that direction. And I think I'm pretty much finished with this. But the key drivers that we need to understand is that to get a true sustainable, I'm talking negative carbon footprint, I'm not talking neutral, I'm talking negative carbon footprint, is we need a long-term strategy, clearly, and this is a way of talking about what the workshop we're asking for, let's say something clear or something decided, and later in terms of subsidies and way to go and directions where there has to be support to encourage farmers to invest in the infrastructure for biomethane production, so that you have many localized clusters of energy making livestock farms. Second point is that the combustion of engine is a necessary key energy converter, and thinking that we have to go the same way as the on-road technology is going is certainly not appropriate, because to go to use the biomethane on site, where the raw material is for free for a livestock farm, well, it runs on combustion engines. So it's our duty, of course. We understand the responsibility to develop more machines to make it quite obvious. So this is in process, but at least there's one available already, the T6-180. And then other point is that the business has to be a fair income to farmers. And the aspect, what I'm describing here, is that the farmer that produce more energy than what they're using can sell it. So this is also not only a reduction of cost, but it's a potential revenue on top for the livestock farm. And last but not the least, all this is enhanced and improved with the investment in precision farming that comes on the machinery today. But there's this precision farming can be integrated also into the production and the production of the biogas. And with the whole Internet of Things, IoT, well, the infrastructure, the machinery, the production, and the output are under control with a limited number of manpower for the small livestock. So in fact, all this is bringing, in fact, into a much more democratic way with a lower investment, all the production and the energy independent to a small livestock environment. So in fact, we're making it local to become autonomous locally. So this is what I wanted to share with you, and what we're pushing, and we will be starting to display this technology at the SEMA in a month from now. So for those who are coming to SEMA, of course, I'll be there. So I'll be happy to answer to your question face to face, if not now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gilles. Okay, so we will continue directly to John Geracti because we are quite late. Sorry for that. So this is our last speech. John is a lecturer and researcher with the Southeast Technological University in Ireland. He also does consultancy work with conservation agriculture farmers and farmer organizations on the ground. John is also a member of the organization based in Ireland, and he's also part of the European Conservation Agriculture Federation, ECAF, which is a partner of us. So please, John.
Thanks very much, Maren Sue. I take it you can see my slides there, yes?
Yes, correct.
You can see it, yeah, okay. Thank you very much for the invitation to speak, and really fantastic presentations. And it came up on different occasions right throughout in all presentations about conservation agriculture. So this is what I'm going to look at now. But just to put it into context, in the development of the recent Common Agriculture Policy and the tranche of the agriculture policy, there was a mission board on soil health set up, and the findings of that mission board was that between 60 and 70% of agricultural soils are in an unhealthy state. Now that actually sets a backdrop for everything we're discussing about fossil fuels. But they have a target and an objective to reach 75% of EU soils to be in a healthy condition by 2030, and it's going to be difficult to actually achieve that. With regard to conservation agriculture, and I just want to clarify something from the very beginning, because there are three guiding principles. The first one is minimal soil disturbance for crop establishment. The second is permanent organic soil cover with either residues and the use of cover crops. And then the third principle is diverse crop associations and rotations. But you need all of these three, different principles implemented concurrently. They have to be implemented at the same time in the same production cycle to achieve the best results that you can get. One of the interesting things with relation to there's nothing new about our dependence on fossil fuels, particularly in the European situation. In 2012, the United Nations Environment Programme, they actually produced a paper. I must share it with you actually on the platform, and that is The End of Cheap Oil. And what they did was they actually used statistics from the FAO to quantify and to coordinate on a map the energy used in agricultural production in kilotons of oil equivalent. And you can see that across the European Union, we're heavy users of energy in terms of agricultural production vis-a-vis other regions around the world. And when we go into Asia and Indonesia, we can see that there's high demand there as well, mainly because of the consumption of diesel to fuel irrigation pumps, but also the use of fertilizer for production of rice and that. So this is a typical scene that you would see, and this is conventional agriculture. This is in Southern Ireland, and you can see there's nearly a three-phase approach to actually establishing a crop in the field. And this is conservation agriculture. So we eliminate 2 tractors, all right, or we eliminate 2 passes in terms of getting our seed or our crop in the ground, all right? And you can see we've no bare soil. The soil is actually covered either with residue or with cover crops, and it enables the farmer to actually get in a wider window in terms of sowing as well.
John, sorry, I don't know if you passed already the slide, but we just see the first one.
Oh, sorry. Just 1 second now.
Thanks. I was looking at my computer. I thought something was wrong with my computer.
All right.
Yeah.
As well, I had a terrible lag before, and I was like, it's my problem, but it was not this time.
Just 1 second now, and I'll just check. I thought when you said you had, you could see the presentation.
Yes, but it wasn't moving. It was only on the first slide.
Okay. Just 1 second now, and I'll get back to the very beginning again.
If you want, we can share, or as I told you before, if you click on share and then share the screen, I think it's the easiest.
Share my screen, yeah. Now, how about that?
Okay, move. Yeah.
Now.
Oh yeah, now. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Okay. Well, I'll go through this very quickly again because everything we're talking about is set in context by a research done by the EU Commission, the European Commission, with relation to soil health in the preparation of the current CAP. And we had a situation whereby they concluded that 60 to 70% of agricultural soils are in an unhealthy state. And by 2030, they hope that 75% of EU soils would be in a healthy condition. And that's a very strong challenge for all of us to deal with. Just to re-emphasize again the principles of conservation agriculture: minimal soil disturbance for crop establishment, permanent organic soil cover with residues or cover crops, and diverse crop associations and rotations. And it's very important to understand that the best results with conservation agriculture happen when these guiding principles are implemented together at the same time in the one production year. I referred to this paper and I will share it with you, but it is from the United Nations Environment Programme from 2012, and it's entitled The End of Cheap Oil. And what it does is it actually produces statistics with relation to energy used for agricultural production in kilotons of oil equivalent per hectare on agricultural lands throughout the world. And you can see that the European Union is a very heavy user of fossil fuel inputs. And you can see then down throughout Asia and Indonesia, the reason for the dark colours in those areas are the use of diesel for irrigation pumps and quite a degree of fertilisation being used as well. So this is the picture that I was showing, that I was talking about, and it's conventional crop production. And here you've got 3 implements working in the field at the same time. You've got a plow, you've got a minimum till cultivator, and then you've got your seeding mechanism, your drill itself. But in conservation agriculture, we replaced 2 of those tractors with a purpose-built drill, all right, that can actually deal with residue and cover crops in the field. And you've 1 pass to actually establish your crop. But you need to use rotations, you need to use cover crops so that you're able to continue crop production year on year. And so this is where I left off, and this is crop establishment systems, and there's an awful lot of confusion about what the different terms that are used. But if we look at the top and the red oval line, moldboard ploughing, non-inversion tillage and chisel ploughing, this is where we get increased fossil fuel inputs, not just in terms of agri-diesel, but also in terms of fertilizer usage and consumption and agri-chemical input. And we also need the highest level of horsepower in these situations as well. And when we move down to the bottom there and no tillage and zero till and conservation agriculture, well, down here then we're actually seeing a far better scenario where we've got the least amount of fossil fuel input, and we eliminate a lot of the horsepower required to put crops, field crops, into our lands. And there's nothing new about this. In the Soil Management Initiative in the UK, they conducted a survey in 2005, 2006, and you can see between the top line in plough-based agriculture and diesel consumption and the bottom line in the table, which is conservation agriculture and no tillage, a dramatic reduction in litres of diesel consumed per hectare to get a crop established. And this is from Jake Freestone. He farms over in the UK. And this is just the evolution of a farm that has moved from plough-based agriculture to minimum tillage between 2004 and 2009, to direct drilling up to 2015, and now to conservation agriculture from 2015 to date. And you can see the differences and the cost savings per hectare that have been enjoyed by moving to these different elements as well. But the other aspect which Jake has been monitoring has been the actual carbon dioxide emissions, 123 tonnes per hectare in the plough-based system, reduced down to 63 tonnes per hectare with conservation agriculture. So nearly a 50% drop in emissions just in terms of establishment alone. And that's not just for Northwestern Europe. This is in southern Portugal and from Gottlieb Batch. And this is a plough-based tillage operation on a 340 hectare farm in 2000, and then a transition to conservation agriculture and no tillage. But we can see significant reductions in maintenance, repair of tractors, repair of tillage tools, in terms of fuel, a 60% reduction, and even in terms of labour. So we have a far more efficient system. And in total, we get reductions amounting to, in costs, amounting to 58%. The interesting thing about conservation agriculture is we always leave a cover on the soil, and this has a dramatic impact on soil-water relations and everything associated with that. So in tillage-based agriculture, what we do is we actually create microparticles. We break apart soil aggregates, so we get very small particles on the surface of the soil, and then this creates a cementing effect and leads to surface water runoff. And this is what it looks like in the fields. This is plough-based agriculture, and here we actually see a rilling effect after heavy rainfall, and it moves across fields and out onto roadways, and it's not just water that's running out there. The colour of the water is dark brown, which actually shows that there is phosphorus aggregates that have joined to soil particles that are moving out, and also potentially pesticide residues. And this is leading to flood events in urban centres, and that's where the press and media focus their attention. But in actual fact, we need to move further back up river catchments to look at the effect that our land management is having on water relations. And it needn't be like that. This is from a field in Trim in County Meath, not far from Dublin. And this is November 2002 on the left, plough-based agriculture. And as a result of, the problems that the farmer was encountering in 2002, we moved to a conservation agriculture system. and, you know, the land far better capable of holding, you know, inclement rainfall events, just as a result of changing over to those 3 guiding principles. So in terms of soil carbon balance, Michael was mentioning about soil carbon sequestration earlier. We've got carbon inputs and carbon outputs, and where they're equal, we get the maintenance of soil organic carbon, which is what we want to achieve under the Mission Board on Soil Health. However, if we've got carbon outputs in the form of soil tillage, soil erosion, and the loss of organic matter, nitrogen fertilizer and excessive use of nitrogen fertilizer, organic matter decomposition, the offtakes of grains, pulses, oil seeds, for example, and also the removal of residues, we get a loss of soil organic carbon, because the only compensation might be photosynthesis and plus or minus animal manures if we decide to use them. And then we can have a maintenance situation where we've got photosynthesis in terms of carbon inputs, we've got stubble residues that may be used and left in the field, plus or minus animal residues with some minimum tillage, all right? But our carbon outputs remain strong in terms of there is still tillage, there is organic matter decomposition, there can be soil erosion, and we are using nitrogen fertilizer again in significant quantities, and we're also doing crop offtakes. But if we use conservation agriculture, what we're actually doing now is, in addition to photosynthesis, we've got crop associations and cover crops. We have exudates from roots improving nutrient cycling and recycling in the soil. We also have crop residue return, and we're using no tillage. We're not tilling the ground at all. And the only outputs are what we're taking from the field, which could be our grain, our oil seeds, and our pulses. So with relation to nutrient availability, because a significant aspect of fossil fuel inputs is the use of fertilizers, chemical fertilizers, which are derived from fossil fuels, of the 18 essential nutrients for plants, 15 of them are applied or supplied by the soil, in a healthy soil, that is. So our nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, they're the ones that we focus on all the time. And minimally do we focus on some of the minor and micronutrients, which are essential to give us good plant health. And just to give you an insight into this, with relation to agricultural fertilizer use, while we can see between 1960, and this is globally, between 1960 and 2010, we see an increase in crop production, but a dramatic increase in fertilizer usage, and we're roughly using the same area of ground to produce our crops. And nowhere is more indicative of this than Ireland, because in 2018 we had the highest use of chemical fertilizer, both nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, in all of the European countries, in excess of 1,000 kilograms of NP and K applied to every hectare of agricultural land in the Republic. In conservation agriculture, farmers are doing very interesting pioneering things, like, for example, the integration of clovers into wheat crop here. This is Olivier Marron in France in 2020. And this is in Denmark. This is Fred Larsen, who's using lucerne in wheat. And the idea is that you actually cover the soil with these crop associations, but you also fix nitrogen so you can decrease the amount or reduce the amount of dependence on fertilizer nitrogen. And you can do this in such a way that you improve nutrient cycling and recycling for subsequent crops also. The Joint Research Centre in the European Commission, they actually did a study earlier this year on the use of phosphorus. And just the last line there, the mean P removal by crop harvesting is 14 kilos per hectare per year. But in reality, farmers are actually using well in excess of 50 kilos in terms of replenishing that fertilizer phosphorus. And that's not in our interest, because there are limited supplies of phosphorus fertilizer in terms of rock phosphate around the globe. And you cannot synthesize phosphorus. You cannot manufacture it. You cannot make it. It has to be recycled. And with the Russian invasion of the Ukraine, we have a limit as well in terms of potassium fertilizer imports by country. And we can see that the European Union has been relatively dependent on potassium fertilizer or potash fertilizer from this particular region as well, all right? In Ireland, what we have done is we've introduced a straw incorporation measure, all right? And this effectively is potassium return, because where farmers are returning residue to soil, what you're doing is there's a significant amount of potassium in that straw residue. And we're actually seeing situations on the ground now on farms where the K levels, the potassium levels in soils, are actually being maintained and are even increasing in conservation agriculture systems where this practice has been adopted. So if we look at the soil food web, on the left-hand side of the screen here, we're looking at inputs in terms of plants and living roots, but also in terms of residues and organic matter. And these are broken down in a healthy soil by a range of different microorganisms between bacteria, fungi, nematodes, arthropods, protozoa, and that releases nutrients into the soil rhizosphere, which is very important. But just to focus on the right-hand side, because then at the top of the ecosystem or the food chain, you've actually got different mammalian species, you've got birds, and you've got different wildlife as well. So even with relation to residue, all right, we've got ground nesting birds like the lapwing, the grey partridge, and the skylark. We've got seed and insect eating birds like buntings and finches, like the linnet, like the yellowhammer and the stock dove. And we have carnivorous birds like the hen harrier and the sparrowhawk. And all they need, all they require is suitable habitat for them to get food, but also to seek shelter. So ploughing residue, it actually destroys habitats, not alone the fact that we increase diesel consumption quite considerably, but it also destroys food sources for these birds. And this is something that is desirable under EU legislation. And these are conservation agriculture farmers in Ireland again. And the farmer on the left, he's using pollinator strips at the side of his field, all right? And the farmer on the right, what he's doing is he's got a predator strip growing down through a field of spring barley to improve predation of pest species in the fields. None of these farmers are using insecticide. The majority of them have reduced fungicide use by 50%. Again, these are fossil fuel inputs that they have through efficient farming and conservation agriculture. They have actually enjoyed the benefits that result from this. So it's so significant that with relation to crop management and cover cropping and crop rotation and diversification and soil management with reduced tillage, that conservation agriculture has been endorsed by the International Union for the Conservation of Nature in 2022. So the question that we're asked in this workshop today, the path towards a fossil-free EU agriculture, and can we achieve that? Can we achieve defossilized EU agriculture with conservation agriculture? Yes. With tillage production? No. We can get more efficient energy use with conservation agriculture, more optimized agricultural production, more reduced greenhouse gas emissions, and economic and environmental benefits like I have shown you. And then the question that we seek to answer in the workshop today is EU agriculture ready for fossil-free transition? Well, I don't want to be negative about it, but in my view, the answer is no. And the question is why? And I think Michael and Gilles covered some of this as well. The Common Agriculture Policy is not fit for purpose. The CAP pays farmers more euros to retain the status quo than to change practice. The tillage industry has a strategic interest in retaining the business as usual model as well. And whether we realize it or not, research, formal research, academic research has fallen way behind farmer best practice in the field, like I've shown you in some of the pictures that I've shown. And agricultural knowledge and information systems in member states, and Michael identified this in his workshops in Denmark, it's in a too poor a state to deliver knowledge-intensive support, which is required for CA adoption. And the other finding that we actually have had for quite a number of years is that the EU is a laggard in CA adoption and development. And that needs to be addressed if we're serious about actually defossilizing European agriculture in the years to come. All right. So I leave it at that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, John. Thank you so much. Okay, so we will now open a discussion. If someone has any question, you can either write it on the chat or open your microphone. John, I think you have to close the window because we see the...
All right, okay.
Yeah, perfect.
All right, okay. No, I close it down altogether for you.
And stop sharing, yes.
Okay. There we go.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much. Okay.
I have a question for Marc.
Marc.
I don't know if Marc is there.
Marc.
Yes, please.
Okay, yes,
Go on.
I have a question concerning the figures you have presented because I was surprised. So is there any kind of policy or public or regional support that explain the growth of number of plants of biomass and biomethane in Germany?
Yeah, basically, just remembering the graph that I showed, basically the growth that I explained from, let's say, 2000, 2004 onwards, the boost was really very linked to our Renewable Energy Act. That's what I tried to explain with this graph. That's why I actually use it. You can really use it for explaining how framework conditions, in this case, the German Renewable Energy Act, boosted biogas production for electricity production. And it can also, you see that when there's not too much support, for example, for biogas, so you can see that the curve flattens a bit. It's a bit more complex than that, but basically it's really linked to the framework conditions. I hope that explains a bit your question. So there is a correlation in between the biogas plant development and the framework conditions, in this case, the Renewable Energy Act.
Okay, thank you. Konstantinos, please.
Yes, I would like to ask Marc or Gilles, maybe, don't know who would like to answer. Have you identified countries with strong potential on adopting biogas technologies and they have not so far? And if yes, what is the reason for this? Because as we said before, the best concept in order to adopt, let's say, a biomethane tractor is to have a complete system, a circular system in your farm. But what about the infrastructure? Have you identified the countries that have the potential and they haven't yet?
So I cannot speak for biogas, so I leave that to Marc, because but on biomethane, basically this is why we're coming to this concept and we invested into this direction, is because there's no specific country and livestock is everywhere. So the idea again is a local manure, local raw material for local production, local usage is the maximum, the most circular you can get in our eyes today. So from that aspect, there is no preferred country. There's only the preferred country of because we're the ones that are starting to supply, manufacture, sell. So it's a matter of production and distribution priority, but it should go everywhere, basically.
Yes, I understand the concept, but let's say I was in about 3 days ago in the biggest agricultural exhibition in Greece, and New Holland has their stand. We had the biomethane tractor, and farmers were impressed. They liked the concept very much, but they're wondering and asking, where can I have the source? Okay, to have a biomethane tractor, because if the infrastructure is not ready and organized like in Germany, they will not be the first that will adapt it and make the move to buy it.
No. So you have biomethane plants, you have biogas plants that can upgrade. I mean, Normally, there's the natural gas that you can get anywhere, but compressed gas. But now the price is not interesting at all and not viable for a farmer, honestly. So that's why I'm going into biomethane, biogas, and this kind of infrastructure. So this needs to let's say to develop in parallel so that the machine can be used. If there's no access to affordable biogas today, it's very difficult. I agree.
Yes, but you have already answered the question I had thought before with the four let's say points of what we need about the true sustainability and smarter agriculture. These are the points that would trigger and spark the interest of adopting biogas. But until now, okay, some steps have to be be done until that.
Oh, that's clear. But this is also okay. There's the farmer with his autonomous finance capabilities, and there's how he can be pushed and helped with from the local authorities. So this is where local authorities have to also take responsibilities, I think, to push in all three areas that were developed today because biogas is essential and certainly necessary for electricity, which is a super problem, and it's going to lot more suitable for big production, larger production. My subject is very micro and local oriented at this stage, and then everything CO2 oriented and on a I'd say on a sustainable way on the soils is also I mean all three are very complementary and go in the right direction, but we're not ready there. So all the governments, and this is where this group can push, and this is where we need to have Europe take a direction on board to push further and to reallocate maybe in the budget, as it was mentioned, in order to go into very sustainable orientations and starting to pull away from what they have been developing over the last 20 years and going into the production that we're suffering from right now. So it's we cannot do it alone. We have developed. We are as a company, private company. We do our part into R&D. We do hope for sales, of course. I mean, the interest of our company is behind is on top of that to sell, but to distribute, but only for the I mean to make the farmers develop and go into the right direction, because we hate anyway. We're all in the ag world. We hate to see farmers disappear one after the other, the soil being in the conditions we're talking about, and seeing the cost and being every day a struggle for any passionate farmer out there. So as all together, I think that we're all three of us today, and we don't hold the truth. It's only big direction in which need to go, but it's not. The solutions are not laying only on these three aspects. There are many solutions, but government really have to push. And who can make advice, give advice to the to authorities, to European Commission? It's people like us. It's people like you, and this is what we need to push for.
Yeah, as you know, AgroFossilFree project is going to produce policy recommendations during the next period, during 2023. So we will definitely have to address this and push the policies in order to give the opportunity to farmers to make this adoption of new technologies, and especially the ones that we speak today about biogas and biomethane and all the other surrounding equipment.
I agree, because I think John put it in very well in the slide, if I may. I don't remember exactly the slide, but you were basically saying that the subsidies were not going in the way to facilitate this direction. Everything was going on a very conservative conservative way that make us be where we are. And the example of floods is incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, combining your presentations, one question I had in my mind, maybe to John this time, is that what about biofertilizers produced after biogas production? Is this enough to support conservation agriculture concept? Could these sectors collaborate strongly to achieve a common goal of reducing CO2 and making energy efficiency improvement in agriculture? You are muted.
Sorry, yes, I would think so, yeah, for sure, because we've been doing quite a bit of work with biodigestate, for example, and we've seen very positive results in the field in terms of the research that we have done with relation to soil microbiology. And you know that it's actually, it's more conducive for enhancing soil health than, for example, raw animal manures, all right? So this is something that can be introduced and integrated. And the other aspect about it is that really what we're looking for is just maybe to lessen our dependence on some of the chemical fertilizers that we're using. I mean, we do have the raw product on our farms to cycle and recycle nutrients, and it's vitally important that we do that, particularly in the instance of phosphorus, like I said, and we can dramatically reduce. Most of the farmers that are doing CA, they're looking at maybe a 30% reduction in nitrogen fertilizer usage now at the moment. It's not a case, I don't think, that we will eliminate it completely and maintain very strong yields, but we can reduce the dependence of it. So it's a kind of an integration, I think, Konstantinos, between biologicals derived from maybe biomethane production, biogas production, and also some of the existing techniques that we're using and practices in the field. Yeah.
Very clear.
I would using, I mean, if using biogas plants for biofertilizer, then the question is also to maybe to address somewhere the fact that could the subsidies, or let's say the indirect subsidies being the protected electricity prices and so on. So this is a difficult one, because right now the electricity is a subject, but the way the subsidies are driven can also drive the destination of the biogas plants. Production, I mean, and
there are also anomalies there. I mean, I showed you a picture of a combine harvester chopping straw and spreading it out on the field. Well, our Department of Agriculture introduced that measure, which is good, and it's with a view to enhancing soil conditions and soil health and reducing dependence on potash fertilizer. But indeed, when they tried to introduce that, the European Commission insisted that you couldn't just spread the straw and get your subsidy. You actually had to cultivate it into the ground. So now you actually create an extra pass of tractors and implements burning more fossil fuel for something that was designed to actually improve soil health. And this is the anomaly that is so apparent in so many instances in terms of what they call supportive policy under the Common Agriculture System.
Wow. And I have to thank you, because there's not one picture where you show what not to do, and there's nowhere you can see a New Holland machine. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry about that.
No.
A lot of farmers that are using New Holland equipment.
Do not do this, and there's only competition. I'm very happy.
Do you have any other question from the audience, maybe to the presenters or to Michael, about the results that we have presented about the workshops of AgroFossilFree? I believe that the problems were pretty very well defined, as I would say. All of the enablers and mitigations and the needs that farmers have today. So if you have any other comment or something that you disagree, you can take the floor. If not, or if you are thinking about it, I have a question for John again. John, in case you meet a farmer that follows traditional, conventional agricultural methods for decades, what would be the first argument that you would use to persuade him to adopt conservation agriculture technique? Is this transition easy to do and quick, or there is need for many steps to be done until that?
I think Michael referred to it in a presentation earlier that you need a kind of a graduated transition, but I've experienced with farmers on the ground that have moved directly from ploughing into conservation agriculture and no tillage, and others that have used a hybrid step. With the benefit of a quarter of a century of experience, I would be reluctant to advise any farmer, myself, all right, because as a researcher or an academic or an advisor, I don't think that I can get the same impact as bringing that farmer to an existing farmer who is practicing conservation agriculture. I think it's farmer to farmer. If you look at the evolution of conservation agriculture throughout the world, it began in Southern America in the 1970s. And there were Club Amigos del Terra down there, Friends of the Earth clubs. And these were farmer groups that were set up. And this is what we have in the European Conservation Agriculture Federation now throughout Europe. We've about 14 different member organizations, but they're essentially farmer-based organizations. So the development of conservation agriculture has been farmer-led and farmer-driven. And very often you find that research and academia and even agricultural extension, that actually follows up laterally in terms of providing support. One of the things I mentioned is that it's very knowledge intensive, but for farmers to actually access that knowledge, the best place to access it is in the field with farmers that are already practicing the system, you know, and it's really impressive to see some of the developments that have happened, you know, and how farmers have reacted. We work a lot with our colleagues in the United Kingdom, but you know, there was a dramatic increase in the amount of conservation agriculture adopted as a result of Brexit in the lead up in the years coming up to Brexit, because farmers in the UK, they were afraid they were going to lose subsidy. So all of a sudden their minds were focused on, you know, well, what are the economic imperatives for us to reduce costs in terms of production, you know? So it's a pity really, it's been highlighted by a number of speakers. We can do so much with subsidy. We can really do an awful lot with subsidy, but very often the structures and the implementation of regulations and that, it actually inhibits developments like this in many respects. But I just think that farmer to farmer education, particularly with field crops in the field, is the way to go in terms of supporting what needs to be done.
Thank you very much, John, for your answer. My final comment on that would be that I see a very big field of collaboration between these sectors that we refer today. Let's say the biogas production, the equipment that can upgrade biogas, and then the combination with conservation agriculture techniques in a holistic view. Let's say I would like very much to see results on this, maybe after a collaboration project or something similar.
Thank you very much, Constantino, John, Marc, and Gilles. We are almost 1 hour ahead of our agenda, so I think everybody wants to go eat or for a rest. So thank you all for attending this workshop. We will contact you again and send you the video of the workshop that will be available in our YouTube channel. And we will also send you some guidelines on how to register on our platform if you are not already there. And yes, we also have a third online workshop that will be performed next March. So we will send you all our news and all our activities through our newsletter. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye.
Bye.